Hi, I'm Georgette Pierre, and you're listening to Black and Nuance Podcast, dispelling the idea that all Black people are monoliths, because we're not. My guests and I bring our varying perspectives to pop culture, relationships, and things we go through that we can't always name. Welcome to Black and Nuance. Shout out to Excitement Radio and the highly unique So Flow Radio in South Florida for holding me down. So this week's episode, man, we get into one of my favorite shows on Netflix that I actually couldn't get enough of and started watching again for the second time for shits and giggles. We talk about Kenya Barris' Black as Fuck. I'm going to say it because that's the name of the show. And shout out to Kenya Barris because he's a fellow Leo. But we get into some of the themes, criticism of the themes surrounding the show. And I bring back some repeat guests that I've had on previously, including Darnell Lamont Walker and TJ Smith. She's an educator. Darnell is in the industry. He is a writer and a filmmaker. So we get into all of the things. Here's our conversation. And I got some repeat guests back on. I got Darnell Lamont Walker, and TJ Smith, her pseudonym. So starting with you, TJ, can you just give them, a quick one-liner, hit a quitter about who you are?
Absolutely. So I'm an educator, an activist, and a thought partner around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I like to believe that I make the world less problematic, one conversation at a time.
Yes, less problematic. Okay, Darnell, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a writer, man. One of those, I like art types, and I like long walks on the beach and company during COVID.
Oh no,
that's a real thing. Darnell means that for real, y'all. He means that though.
Did you see? It was a meme today where old boy was like, "Yo, for real, I'm tired of participating. I'm no longer participating in this quarantine. So I do respect your space if you are, but I'm no longer participating."
No, I didn't see that. Where did you put it? Is it on Twitter?
I didn't post it. I saw it on Facebook. I was like, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Fuck it.
I'm not, but but even you said like one of our girlfriends, TJ, she's probably reached that point too, right?
Oh yes. According to our lovely friend, the Texans are over it. Okay, they are out and about and they are in denial, starting with the governor. Okay, so yes, she has been shipping in the pandemic and moving around very as if we're not in quarantine. So I think that people have reached their limits, but I am over Darnell and him wanting company during this time. I just can't. I don't want to.
Listen, Darnell has a nice, cozy ass apartment. I want that hammock life. He has set up. I mean, he has a whole situation. Like he had posted, he's like, he works here on his personal projects, and then he's over here in another part of his sunken living room doing something else. And I'm it's cozy. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Like Darnell is the one person, like he's the one friend that you kind of give that pass to. TJ. So.
Come on, TJ. Come on. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
I will gladly be over there when the world opens back up. It's nothing.
TJ, you got to come to New York and we will be right at Darnell's kicking it. So
there we go.
But listen, this episode is I've been excited about this episode. I've been really interested in getting back into talking about this. It's been a month since it's come out. This is the Black as Fuck episode, our thoughts and opinions about Kenya Barris' new show on Netflix, or his first show on Netflix. Well, no, because he has a sketch comedy series, but this is his,
You're not gonna count that.
Okay, that's fine. But the first show that people really are tying Kenya Barris to under his $100 million deal with Netflix. And so what I really want to talk about, and the reason why I brought Darnell and TJ on, is I've had different conversations with them, but I want to talk about some of the themes from the critics, from what people like, what they didn't like, and then their personal opinions about some of these themes, and some conspiracy theories around what the fuck movie they were referencing in one of the episodes.
Right on. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going to get there. Okay, so I want to first start with the interview that I read before the series came out. There was a Variety interview, and I'll make sure to put this in the show notes, where Kenya Barris talks about his childhood trauma and acting for the first time in his own show. And there was a mention of him also working through his divorce in the show as well. On a blanket, simple question response, What did you think about the show at first glance without having looked at anything and all that? Darnell, I'm gonna start with you because you are the critics of all critics when it comes to fucking TV shows.
That's a tough. Wait, when you say at first glance, do you mean at the trailer or at the pilot or?
Yeah, so what brought you into it? Was it the trailer first that said like, oh, okay, I might watch this, or was it people talking shit?
The people talking shit brought me into it.
Okay.
So how much of an answer are we giving?
Go whatever you feel comfy with. So if people talking shit brought you in, what
people
was
talking
it?
shit brought me into it. I mean, because for me, when black people hate things on social media, I know I'm gonna enjoy it. And so I was like, oh shit, I was like, oh shit, Black Twitter hates Black AF. Let me go watch this. I think this is going to be very enjoyable.
Right.
So that's what brought me into it.
Okay. What is it the nuance about, like, if black people dislike it or a majority of black people like it, what makes you gravitate towards it, Darnell?
I think so. What I've learned, like the things I like and the art, the artistry that I enjoy, and television and film that I enjoy, is very much what Black AF was to me. Is kind of like it's paced differently than most black shows. Like it doesn't look like Tyler Perry. It doesn't look like anything on OWN. All those look the same to me. Like I can watch literally one of those shows, and I feel like I've watched every single one of them. And so I'm like, okay, but I know that's what black folks on Black Twitter like. They're like, oh, I love Queen Sugar and I love this, and I'm like, I just can't get into it, and I don't know why. Or Love Is. I think what was that? Was that the name of that show? Love Is.
Yes.
And I just couldn't get into. I was like, I don't like it. But then, and so I'm like, I don't know. But then I was like, okay, so I know that that's what Black Twitter likes, and they don't like it when it's kind of slow or it's character driven instead of just drama. Like black folks are always expected to perform in something. And so if we're not performing and it's not over the top or overly dramatic or way too funny, then it's like, I thought it was slow, it was boring, da 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 da. It's like people are now getting into Ozark, but they're suffering through like season one. And they're like, you got to get through season one. No, season one was great.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
You know what I mean?
I'm struggling through season one, but I will get back. I promise.
So I know that, I know the pace that I like, and I know the style and the structure and the formats that I like. And it's usually not stereotypically black television.
I love it. Okay, TJ, what about you? What initially brought you in? Wait, I think didn't I refer it, like recommend it to you for you to watch?
You actually did, but before I jump into like why I like this show, I also want to just piggyback on something that Darnell said. First of all, I completely agree. Usually when people like stuff, I dislike it. And when they don't like it, I like it. And I think it's because, right, like we are excited that like black people, how we have shown up on TV has evolved. But I think that we buy into this narrative of like, but this is how we should look at this point in time, right? So when I think about Black AF, why some people don't like it is that I think it's too progressive for some people, right? Like we should be still showing up how Tyler Perry depicts us or how Love Is depicts us, right? Like we're excited that we've evolved, but some of us don't believe that we should have evolved as far enough as where Black AF is, right? Like we buy into what we should look like in that moment in time. I think about growing up, right? It was a lot of higher learning, boys in the hood, right? Like that narrative or whatever. We're excited about the evolution, but Lord knows, don't think past the evolution of that moment, because then that's where the criticisms of, I feel like shows up. But you did tell me to watch Black AF. I'm not a TV watcher. And so thank you very much for pointing it out that I should go and watch it, because sometimes I don't know if I'm the demographic because I don't watch TV like that. But then when I watch the show, I'm definitely like, oh, okay, I think I am the targeted demographic. It was funny and it kept my interest. Like I said, I don't watch a lot of TV, and it kept my interest for 8 episodes, about 50 minutes a piece. And Lord knows my attention span is short. I also appreciate that it has a lot of communities talking about a lot of different things. and we are having different types of conversations in the Black community, right? Where we are really like pushing ourselves of why did you like it? Why didn't you like it? And I appreciate those conversations because we're starting to unpack some of our what's problematic thinking. And knew it was coming. And lastly, I admire his vulnerability and bravery. Like he put his whole story out there for people to critique and laugh at, and we are still doing that literally, like to this day. So, like,
Right.
I also admire him.
Right, right. I think there's something that you said. Well, so I know there was like maybe 1 or 2 episodes that peaked 30, 35 minutes, but on average, I think, and one of you all may have said it, or even just attention spans, we are used to seeing a 30-minute show in 20 minutes because all of the commercials, but Netflix kind of transcends that. And so I think one thing that was very interesting was people were basically trying to discredit him because he shows up in a different class system. But he made a point in the article that came out, I think, January of this year, that doesn't mean he shows up as less of a Black man. He's still a Black man that shows up in a different class system. And so the biggest and the loudest theme that came out in the criticism piece was the anti-Blackness, the colorism tropes, and then quantifying Blackness, right? And so the first thing that I thought about was, okay, well, when I heard about Rashida Jones being in it, I don't think I thought anything of it. Now, if you were to ask me, because like Drake had made Rashida Jones like the image of her, like the cover art for his what's the popular song that everyone was singing, y'all, like a couple of years ago?
One had a man last year, Life Goes On, which is it that one?
He sampled Lauryn Hill.
Yeah,
Shit.
yeah.
What the hell? Why is that shit slipping my mind? I don't like that shit.
She don't want to slow song. Careful.
Lauryn Hill, right? Hold
I know
on,
what you're talking about.
Yes. Nice for what? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice for what? So I'm just like, wait, Rashida Jones, like, why is her name keep coming up? And I mean, I end up finding out like periodically throughout the years. I was like, oh, this is Quincy Jones, one of Quincy Jones' children. Matter of fact, when I watched the Quincy documentary on Netflix, which was really good. And so more things started coming out. I started seeing people post articles about Kidada, her eldest sister, who she shares the same mother and father with. And what was coming out was like people didn't really know Rashida was half Black, half white, that her father was Quincy Jones. But one of the articles that I read that I thought was very interesting was when her parents split, she chose to go with her mother and stay with her mother, who is white. And then Kidada went on to live with her father. And there was struggle that, Kidada found she struggled with just trying to find identity. She befriended Aaliyah. She was the fiance to Tupac before he was killed. Didn't know that. But I say all that to say, when I was talking to TJ about some things, I was like, Rashida Jones is very much white passing. And but that doesn't make her less of a Black woman. And I think a lot of times people want to critique or criticize, like, well, she's never played Black women before. So I want to kind of tackle your thoughts on how they were attacking Kenya Barris, for one, for his colorism, the casting or the lack of colorism in his casting with a lot of his shows, and then the fact that this is his family, yet they still feel like he should still cast people that are not necessarily reflective of his family. But Darnell, I want to start with you because that long ass sigh you just did.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's some bullshit, man. Like, I think that one, Kenya Barris has like 2 shows, right? So in real life, like everything else is all one. It all comes from one idea. So I'm not mad when everyone looks the same on each show, and also they do look like his family. I'm like, if I'm making a film about my family and my mom is the color of, like, she's not, but if she was like the color of night, then I'm gonna cast somebody that looks like my mom.
Right.
Just like we got it wrong. Well, we didn't, because it was a stupid thing. But when Zoe Saldana played Nina Simone, it was like, I got to know 500 other people that could have played Nina Simone that wasn't Zoe Saldana. So one, we're mad when we don't stick to the color scheme, and then we're mad when we do. And so it's like, that's just a bullshit argument that people had. 2, I think that as far as Rashida Jones, like, she's never played a white woman either. So like I've seen just about every show she's been in, not because I'm a fan of her, but she's usually in good shows. And there's not been one show where she said, I'm a white woman, just because, she never addressed her race. And so like when people were like, "Oh, she's playing now. She wants to play black." Well, as far as I know, she's always been black,
Right.
Right.
and like you don't have to announce your blackness if you were on the show. Why should she? Because she's light skinned. So I think people need to really. I think that's one of those moments where people really need to just look at themselves and look at their ignorance around that, and just say, yeah, you're right. I'm real ignorant about that.
Right. I think TJ, before you jump in, the other thing that I, didn't get to clarify as well is, and I don't know if she said it or somebody else said it, but it was just like, I think it was probably Twitter. They were just saying Rashida Jones has also never identified, her race was never, for her characters were never identified, right? Like everyone was always left to assume, whatever character she played. But I remember the night before Black as Fuck dropped, she was on a live with Lena, and I think she had mentioned, she was like, this is the first time she's playing a character close to like who she really is. And I thought that was actually very interesting because I didn't watch her in Parks and Rec. I didn't watch The Office. And so they just feel like she's not black enough. And I don't necessarily know what to say, to people that are biracial, because I don't wake up trying to choose an identity or having to choose an identity. And you and I have talked about that. So go ahead. What's your thoughts about that, TJ?
So yes, I agree with Darnell. Like, this is his story. And here's what I want to scream to the whole Black community is stop trying to find ways to invalidate each other's story. This man, if everybody in his family is of the lighter hue, then guess what? When he tells his story, the people in his story will be of the lighter hue. As Black people, we have got to stop looking for Black art to tell all the stories of all the people, of all the things, right? Like, he made this very plain and clear that this is my story. Even Blackish is written, from what I understand, as a close parallel to his life. But he wouldn't stamp it as his story. He stamped Black AF as his story, his life, so much so that he played himself. And so the only person that gets to validate that is him. And so I also don't want to take away from the colorism conversation, right? Like, colorism is a very real thing. And a part of my lived experience as a woman who has been blessed with more melanin, right? But we have got to stop the trauma Olympics of just like, I experience Blackness more than you, so therefore, you're not Black enough, right? Because even in that, we are looking for somebody to validate that our experience was worse. And so what we've got to stop doing is taking the time to invalidate each other's stories and find connectedness and validate each other's story. Like, I think it was posted on Twitter, right? In one of the links of just like, Rashida Jones is not Black enough. However, Tiffany Haddish is too Black, right? So it's like, you damned either way that you show up as a Black woman, period, right? It's just like, and who is making these decisions? I think that if we sit down and really interrogate the why we operate or think like this or feel empowered to say these things, it is all rooted in the system of whiteness and anti-Blackness. And so what we can start to do is validate each other's story, and continue to contribute to the story that we are not monolithic. So Rashida can show up and Tiffany can show up. And I'm going to like the show because it kept my attention for 8 episodes. And I can say 50 minutes because I did a lot of stopping, rewinding, pausing, all the things, getting snacks, all the things, right? It kept my attention for those reasons, right? And not because I see a family of a lighter hue and I have more melanin, so like, I'm good, it don't tell my story. He didn't hire me as a writer and say, Tristan, come on, your story will be the first story that I roll out. Like, no, that's not it. So I just really, when we start to have these conversations and invalidate each other or invalidate each other's lived experience, I just want us to pause and say, like, how can I validate this? Or find a place of connectedness, or at least just respect that, like, this brother was willing to put his story out there, because I personally believe that the world doesn't deserve to hear it.
So there's an article that I put in the links or in the document about, and then they had quoted this woman that wrote for Undefeated. Her name is Soraya McDonald, and she pointed out in her review of the show, Black as Fuck doesn't do the real work of unpacking the privilege and oppression wrapped up in being Black, but also light skinned and wealthy. Is that criticism even necessary if this is a show that's about his family?
And why does it need to do the work?
Right.
Maybe he doesn't want to do the work.
Right.
Everything I create is not about doing the work. Like maybe I just want to. Like I don't believe that there's a such thing as just entertainment. I believe that everything that we have that entertains should also do something else. But maybe it's not supposed to enlighten or bring you to some Hotep stage or break down colorism or any of that. Like no, it's not necessary. I think that he wants his purpose was I want to tell a story about Black people who, by his definition, made it, and that's it. And maybe that's all he wanted to do. Maybe he didn't want to say I want to tell a story and do this. Like TJ said, you don't have to do all the things. That's what's wrong with Black work. I think that's what's wrong with why a lot of people won't criticize Black work, and why Black people are also afraid to criticize Black work is because we don't get enough, but the few that we do get, we expect so much from it.
Right.
And so we don't want to criticize it because we don't want them to take it away from us.
Yep.
And when she says the thing about it doesn't do the work of, right? It feeds back into my feeling of, here we go invalidating each other again, because he did in the very first episode talk about how as a Black man with this chain, right? These people still see him. They don't see his money. They don't see his access. They don't see his privilege as a light-skinned Black man. They just see him as a Black man with a chain. So when we start to say things like it doesn't do the work of, again, it's like she's holding a bar of the work looks like this. Meet my expectation of talking about the intersectionality between race and class, right? But he did do it in telling his story. He said, no matter what, how much money I have, if I drive that little car the white lady was driving or the little electric car, right? It doesn't matter. I'm still going to be a Black man with a chain.
Darnell, wanting to get your perspective from the standpoint of working in the industry and the whole concept, with character development, with a lot of pieces that you wrote, personal projects, and even you working on children's stories or just stories in general, what is it? Did you see anything that kind of stood out to you, like flaws and things from a structural standpoint of this show? Or was this something that was easy to watch for you just because you weren't necessarily expecting anything?
I wasn't expecting much, but it wasn't easy. I think the first 2 episodes, I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. But I know, usually I'll watch a pilot and I don't really count the pilot. I'll get to episode 2 and then I'll judge a show. But for some reason I said, let me go to 3. And once I got to 3, I was good. I was like, okay, this show is great. This is
interesting.
But 1 and 2, I was like, I'm not sold yet. And I don't know why. I just wasn't there. And but it was something there that kept me. But there were, it reminded me of other shows, and I was like, it's pulling from Curb Your Enthusiasm or The Office or Park and Recs, and I'm like, I wish it would have been a little different there. I didn't like that it was based around his daughter wanting. I mean, I guess that was cool. Like his daughter wanting to go to school, so she's making this documentary. Because I'm like, well, what happens next? What's going to happen in the next season? What happens when she gets into school? Or what are they going to do? Are we gonna have another version of her going to school, and then it's going to be the Netflix version of Grownish? And it's like, So I just kept thinking about things like that, but nothing really. I didn't have any issues with it, just because I went in with very not low expectation. I went in thinking, okay, it'll be a show,
Right.
Just a few episodes, I'll watch it, and then
Yeah.
I got hooked after that.
Right. And I feel like it's hard for Darnell out of all people to get hooked to something.
Mhm.
And so for me, when I jumped in it, I literally was laughing within the first 5 minutes because I just had no idea. I thought the trailer was hilarious, but I want to talk about some of the criticisms that maybe your circle, that you heard in your circle or your tribe. And so I remember sending it to a couple of people. So TJ was one. The other person I sent it to, someone that I worked with, and she could not stand it until I sent her articles that gave her more backstory. So it was in reverse. Like she needed to be bought in a little bit more of on the understanding tip than like yourself or TJ. What TJ? I'll start with you. What were some of your people saying that you knew, or why they couldn't watch it? What were their gripes with it?
So one that just came up recently was I asked a black cisgendered man why he could not get through the episodes, and he says because in the very first episode he does a lot of whining. And he said, he talks with this really high pitched voice. No. So then I asked, well, why was that annoying to you? And he said, because he talks in this high pitched voice. Well, as soon as I asked him why, and he began to explain himself, he went to a high pitched voice. And I said, your octave in your voice just changed. And I think that what this story illuminates is that a lot of people do that, and you just had to see it on TV. Now you're going to be aware of it because I pointed it out, and like I'm going to point it out and track it for the rest of our conversation, because like what you don't want to see is something that you actually do. I think other conversations again, and I feel like you and I have had this conversation around just it felt like for a show to be called Black AF, it was very privileged and light skinned, right? It wasn't black enough because it didn't have a lot of dark skinned people in there, or it didn't tell the story of a different type of socioeconomic status and or access to class. And it's just like, but did you all miss the headliner of like, this is his story? Like this is his story, right? Those were the two I feel like, well, the first direct one that I had that I talked to somebody one-on-one, but just like in the circles that I run in or communities I'm a part of, it was we don't understand why it's called Black AF when it could be labeled as very privileged or almost one-dimensional.
Well, the original title I read was Black Excellence, and he changed it to Black as Fuck. Darnell, what about your thoughts as far as like your tribe of people, their criticisms?
I have, like, everyone I know, everyone in my tribe anyway, I think we all love it.
That's what's up. I didn't think that was gonna be the case.
Yeah, my people all like it, and some of the kids I don't like too much. Like I'm like, I don't know if it's the casting choice or if it's just the personality of
the same.
I'm like, I don't know.
Not the kids.
The kids, right?
Yeah, there's one I could do out without the third middle child girl. Like I'm okay.
Girl, right? Yeah,
I'm okay on her.
I love how everybody's scared of her.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why she's there, other than she exists in real life.
Right.
I'm like, y'all, you didn't have
to
go.
She is the one that brings up a lot of themes, important things, especially when she was dancing with her white friend.
I feel like they didn't. I feel like I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it. I feel like they brought it up, but it didn't really. They could have used somebody else for that.
I agree too, Special. I just think she doesn't bring up a lot of things. She brought up that, and we saw her flat ass and her white friends, but it wasn't really, but I think that's interesting that you like her. That's the child that you actually think should be kept.
Right. I think that oldest child could be done with. The oldest sister.
I can see why you think that as well.
All she did was dye her hair. Bye.
I can see that too. I actually like Is it? Wait, what's the one that's getting into NYU? How did I forget her name already? Shit.
Oh, I don't know any of them.
Yeah. So the one that's doing the video for
Right.
NYU, I actually like her the most because she gives me like she doesn't necessarily buy into all the socializations or she questions some of them. And I had liked that she questioned her sister's boyfriend on possibly being a little fluid. And her sister was not a fan of that because she felt like she didn't know what she was talking about. So I like her. But yeah, that's interesting that you said, Darnell, that you, with the exception of the kids, everyone loved it. That's awesome because I didn't think a lot of people, when I would hear people, the main complaint was like, it was just, there was no substance, there was no this, there was no that. And I was like, the shit is funny to me. It's
funny. Like, what do y'all want?
Yeah.
But you know what? In hearing these conversations now, right, just across the three of us, a question or something that I would want to dig a little bit deeper into is just like the class, right, across who liked it and who didn't like it. Right. Because I also think about like entertainment. Most of the, at least in my lived experience, the things that entertain me are things that I connect with and or aspire to be, right? Or have some type of connectedness to it. And when I think about the people who I know that did not like it, right? Like they show up in a different like in my community, it is a stark difference across socioeconomic status around like who liked it and who didn't.
I think, yeah, I think I am going to solicit people to comment because I really want to hear their thoughts because some people are like, I can't get past their first episode, second episode. But again, TJ, you have made this comment offline that people, Black creatives, sometimes have to fucking prove themselves before someone has to watch it. And again, it required me sending all these articles to her to be able to be like, oh, I get it. I understand where he's coming from versus like, well, why didn't you just watch it and then do the research? I actually wanted to learn more about Kenya Barris after watching Black as Fuck, to be honest. And that's when I found out he's a Leo. I was like, come on, fellow Leo, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, because you have brought it up, Darnell, and the nuances of Blackness as it relates to criticizing Black art. TJ, you have mentioned it as well. Black storytellers having to be the one-off voice for the entire community. But before we get into that, I want to know, what movie do you think they were talking about? Because I have been racking my brain about this for the past month. And I feel like, Darnell, you got your ears to the TV streets all the time. But start with you. What film did you think they were talking about that they didn't like, that they thought was horrible?
So I thought that they were talking about Queen and Slim because everybody loved that movie. And I did not see any negative critiques of that movie. And I did not like the movie. And it was almost like to this place, even in my own community, where I would keep my opinion to myself in certain spaces because everybody romanticized the shit out of that film and just saw themselves in the characters, and it was so deep, and I just couldn't find the frequency. I just couldn't. Now I will always go and make sure a Black person gets their coin. So I was planning to purchase a ticket anyway, but I purchased the ticket and I went and I stayed awake the entire time because I wanted to be a part of the post conversation. But I didn't like that movie. I don't foresee myself buying the DVD. It was very stereotypical to me. And yeah, so I just thought that whole episode was about Queen and Slim. And I thought it was super funny that Lena Waithe was in it. And I'm like, look at, you better stand. But after talking to you, you're like, oh, but it wasn't about Queen and Slim. And I'm like, oh,
I don't know.
Okay.
So we know, and I say this with sarcasm, we know Queen and Slim was Darnell's favorite movie of all time. Oh. I say that with sarcasm. I do, because Darnell did not. He was not a fan. But Darnell, before you answer, I told her, I saw on Twitter that people thought it was Boots Riley's Sorry to Bother You.
Mm-hmm.
It was? Was it really?
Well, I thought that too, but the problem there is that when he showed his family loved it, right?
Right.
And people who watch Sorry to Bother You wouldn't also but his family also loved Tyler Perry. So those are two different audiences though.
Right.
So I was
right.
like, well, it couldn't be like a like Sorry to Bother You, which I was also mad about. Like I was just as mad about Sorry to Bother You as Kenya was. But in the beginning, I thought it was a Tyler Perry film.
Okay.
And I was like, obviously, this is about a Tyler Perry film. Fall from Grace or pick one. You know?
He said pick one.
Pick one. Throw a rock, whichever one it lands on, that's the film that they're showing. But then his family loved it. He hated it. But then he went to see Tyler Perry. But so I'm like, maybe. But so I'm going to hold on to the fact that it was a Tyler Perry film.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to see Tyler Perry because he wanted to know why he did
it.
And because I mean, like, even in Tyler's explanation, it was like, well, obviously, he's like, you think I care about those people and these awards? I walk out on half these movies, obviously, because had you stayed, you might have learned how to make a good movie.
I can't with you, Darnell. It's so.
I don't know.
I'm torn. I am itching to know. And I was like, I'm going to try to read her lips. Of course, they blocked that out. They blurred it out so you couldn't see. Mm-hmm. And so there was the whole idea that I thought it was funny that he was on this, what do they call it? This Black Council, the Black Council, right? Where he had Tim Story and Will Packer, Lena Waithe, Ava DuVernay, and Issa Rae. Am I missing somebody? Maybe. And so they were all on there. And so he's thinking like he's on this Black Council of people that can talk about things. And then Lena throws him under the bus at the damn event that she said was like, oh, I'm going to bring it. And so throwing it to you, Darnell, first, what's this whole thing about you may mention, but I want to delve in a little bit more about criticizing Black art, because even when I took it back to talking about the Versus series, when Teddy Riley was doing too much on the first round and people were making fun of him, there was this Black writer that writes for CNN and people were frying they were dragging him on Twitter, Black Twitter, because they were just like, you come into our space, you're in our barbecue, you're part of this conversation, only to drag us on white white spaces. And so what are your thoughts about us being able to critique Black art and then the fact of like storytellers, them feeling Black people feeling like Black people have to be the end all be all to speak for the entire community?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that we have to have the spaces to do it, but we have to do it. Like, we have to criticize people. Like, no one should be above criticism. Which is like an issue I have with like so many artists that people like defend wholeheartedly, even when they're wrong. It's like, no, we have to be able to criticize them. If it's bad, it's bad. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't help the artist at all to not criticize it. It doesn't help the art at all to not criticize it. And so it's like, it has to be done. I think that because I remember that article came out and I was like, oh, like I read it and I was like, what white man wrote this? And then because it was on CNN. And I was like, oh, no, brother. And I think I even posted it. I was like, oh, no, you can't take this back to CNN. Like, you can write it, but you should have gave it to The Root, to Blavity, whoever. Because we not over at CNN reading it.
Right.
Other people over at CNN reading it.
Right.
And it's like, so I think that was a big part of my issue. But like we have to be able to, we have to create those spaces where we're able to do that. And we have to not jump on the people who are criticized. Like, we have to be able to read it and comprehend and know the difference between criticism, and because people will shut down a whole conversation by just saying, oh, you a hater, you're weird.
Yes.
Like, that stops all critical thought. Don't do that. And I call people out on it. They be like, oh, you just a hater. Oh, don't be stupid. You sound dumb right now. Let's have an actual conversation. Do you want to do that, or do you want to just be stupid and end it there? And they're like, what do you mean? And then you talk to them and they're like, yeah, all right, I see what you're saying. All right, well, this is what we should have gotten to hours ago. Right. But now we're here. And so it's like, at the Root, was it the Root? Yeah, the Root, like a couple of months ago, or maybe sometime in late 2019, they did an article. I wish I remembered some of it, but they did an article about it and how not criticizing Black film would be or Black art would be the end of it. You know, and it was dope. Like it was dope. And very important. And I wish more people read it. But you know, then you had like who was it? Was it Nikki Giovanni who says? But I think we have to do it. Like and like we have to be the ones that do it. Depending on what that art is, you know, like some of our stuff can definitely be criticized by anybody who wants to criticize it. But there are some things that we create that everybody won't understand when they write their critiques. It's like, what? You didn't get any of this. Like you didn't understand it because you can't see it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what lens you watch this through, but this is not it. I think it was like Nikki Giovanni who said, you know, I hope, or Toni Morrison, either way, it was like, I hope a white person never has cause to write about me. And it's like, because I sit there, like if I sit there and tell you my entire life story and write it out in a book and there's a novel about it and you say, oh, this novel, and the things you're critiquing is very Black. It's like my audience will get this because it's who they are, but you won't get this, and you're critiquing it and saying that this is a bad book when this is an amazing book that you just can't understand. And so I think we have to be careful who we let critique our stuff.
Real quick, TJ, I actually found the article, Darnell. It was written shortly after Queen and Slim came out, December 2019, by your friend. Is it Tanya Renee or
Tanja?
Tanja, because she said the J is pronounced hard.
J,
yeah. Tanja Renee Stidham. She actually I was gonna have her on, but she wasn't available. But she wrote in, so I'm gonna put that in the show notes and I'm gonna read it as well. But some great points. TJ, what about go ahead? What's your thoughts about that?
Darn it, I feel like they just ran away. But I think so 2 thoughts. Georgette, you talked about like the guy being invited to like the cookout, right?
Yeah.
And then like this different story for CNN. So my feelings towards that piece was, in my head, it's 2 different things, right? Like you and Darnell are into the arts, you're in the industry, you're in the places doing the things, right? And I feel like that CNN article, why I feel some type of way about it, is because when we start to critique things that have been made for us, by us, to honor us, and we take that to a white space, I feel some type of way about it. So, for example, Versus was created by Swiss and Timbaland for us to come to this collective space and honor like legends of the music industry, right? And so I personally feel some type of way about like Babyface and Teddy Riley, because those are legends of my time and they are legends of music, not just Black music. They both created eras, and I believe that their legacy should be protected for what they did for music, period. And so like he came into this space that was made, right? And then you took it to CNN and dragged it. That was too much. Like that space was not even created for the people at CNN, to be honest. And then you took what I feel like was your personal opinion and put it on this white space, this white large platform, and like change the whole narrative of what that space was built for, right? Like you were irresponsible with your platform. And so in my head, it is 2 different conversations around critiquing Black art. I think that I can definitely get the sentiments of we need to be mindful of what we say in white spaces and how we treat each other in white spaces. But I think it should go back to, if we want this protected space where we can be honest with each other, number 1, we have to create it. And number 2, we've got to stop validating those white spaces. Like Tyler said, I don't care about those awards. I haven't seen those movies, right? I don't even know what the award is that you get. It's an Oscar, right? Is it an Oscar or an Emmy?
Oscar,
right?
Emmy, it's for TV and film, yeah.
Right. Like we have got to stop like putting a lot of weight on those things and be concerned about, us getting an NAACP award, right? And maybe creating those platforms where we can go into a protected space and begin to critique one another if that's what we seek to do around Black art. But I think that is going, like, there should be a space where we can critique things, because I feel like Kenya got at it in his episode around like, I don't want to be liked just because it was Black, right? Like I want it to be good because it is good art.
Mm-hmm.
And if the artists are asking for that honest critique, then I think that we create that space so that we can be honest, so that people can get better.
Well, you know what makes me think about, because I know you all have both lightly touched upon it, about, you know, we always put the pressure or this weight on, okay, Kenya Barris needs to speak for all nuances of Black people, but he isn't every Black person, right? We all grew up differently. I didn't grow up in Inglewood. I didn't, you know, I grew up with a Caribbean family, and so that looked a little bit different. But is white gaze real, right? Like, I mean, I understand the idea of it, but I have never actually thought about it. But Donna, I'm sorry, is white gaze a real thing?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's absolutely a real thing, and I think it happens often.
Especially,
Like, it happens often. What were you saying?
I was gonna say, especially in the industry, right? Like, because I felt like, was he relating it more so to like both personal life and work life too? I feel like he was navigating between both of them, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of his, like somewhere in there, everything gets blurred though, you know. So it's like it's all the same for him, and it's like, yeah, this is how I'm being seen. A lot of our work is being seen through this thing. I think it's you know, I had a conversation with someone. I think the one thing that I'd give Tyler Perry credit for is he's created work that doesn't exist in that. So like white people don't exist in his world, in his movies, and Blackness doesn't evolve or revolve around whiteness. Blackness is just Black, and this is what Black is. I'm sure he didn't do that on purpose, but that's what he's created, and it's great. And if we could do that, but there's so many times when we don't, because it's, you know, we're trying to succeed in the world, and that world ain't our world, and so we are looked at through these certain lenses and through this gaze and that whole thing.
TJ?
Yes, the white gaze is very real. I think that we see that in a myriad of ways in our society. Kenya talked about it, right? Like, no matter how much money I make, I'm still seen by his white counterparts, the people who he has to interact with, you know, as this Black man with a chain. I think that we see it when white police officers don't ask questions in approaching Black men. They shoot first, ask questions later.
Mm-hmm.
We see it in education where a white teacher sees a Black kid and begins to lower expectations. So it's just like, yes, the white gaze is very real. And I'm glad that Darnell brought up that point, because I've never it so shout out to all people who are Black, but it is hard for me to sit through some Tyler Perry productions. And so I've never looked at it with that lens that he doesn't create space for white people in his
At
movies.
all.
And shout out to him. Right now, I'm gonna go back and look at that one that keeps popping up on Netflix, because I haven't seen
Fall
it.
from Grace? I've heard so many things. I don't know if I'm going to make it there, though.
Ooh, our friend who's pimping in the pandemic, as soon as it came out, she was like, "You should watch it," and I said, "For what?" But I'm gonna go back and watch it now.
Yeah, don't do it to yourself now. You ain't gonna do all that.
I'll stream it in the other room, right? But I don't know. But the white gaze is very real. But what I am excited about is that we are starting to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that Kenya talked about it as the white gaze, but really, if we dig a little deeper, it's a form of internalized oppression. We see ourselves through this system of whiteness, and we're not good enough, or we have to show up a certain way.
Yep.
And that's when we have the conversations of, like, instead of it being a spectrum of Blackness, right? It's this binary where Rashida Jones is not Black enough and Tiffany Haddish is
too Black,
right? Because of the white gaze. So I'm excited that we can have conversations around the white gaze and start to unpack some of that internalized oppression.
Well, the reason why I brought it up, and then we're going to go into the last part before the last segment. The reason why I brought that up was because you were saying that, we need to stop putting so much emphasis on Grammys and Oscars and the white award shows. But the issue is, and Darnell, I would love to get your last thoughts on this before the last topic, is the industry, in order to even equate some level of success, push so much fucking emphasis on those particular spaces. If you have an Emmy, like I've been tooting that word, and I don't necessarily even feel like I deserve to hold that title, but I legitimately have a physical Emmy award for something I did in television. And so when you start to tell these people, Oscar award winning and Grammy award winning, like everyone's stock goes up. Because that's the emphasis they put. It doesn't matter that you got all these NAACP awards from the time you started your music, film, TV career. They have always prioritized the white award shows that always fucking box us out every single year, as if we don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is sad, like, and I don't know how to even bring the respect back to our awards. Like it's on so many, it's on the shoulders of so many people to do, but because like from the industry, from the NAACP awards and Soul Train and whoever else got BT and all that stuff, it's like, they're out there just giving awards to people just because they're Black. It's like, I watch these award shows and I'm like, how the fuck? What?
Right. Like
what do you mean? And then you watch the white show, and then back to the Black ones. It's like even the rappers, they when they are not winning, they say we need to put more respect. These things don't matter. They don't matter. And then they finally get one, and they change. Look at Jay-Z showing up to the Grammys. I got in his last I think his last album, he brags about how many Grammys he has. And I remember once upon a time he was like, they put us on the back burner. I ain't never going. I'm boycotting forever. Da, da, da. And it's like, oh, okay, but now you're in there.
Yeah.
Because, you know what I mean? And so it's like, so who's doing what? And or they don't show up to the BET Awards.
They do not. I was going to make mention, like the star power has definitely decreased with a lot of the Black award shows.
Oh, right, absolutely. Like you get to the BET Awards and the Soul Train Awards, and you start hearing these categories, and it's like, for so and so album of the year, it's Nicki Minaj, and then like the next 5 people are like Strawberry Session. It's like, who the fuck is Strawberries? It's like, who are these rappers? Y'all just pulling names off SoundCloud, or what are y'all doing? And so that's what it is. It's like, but then you have like these white award shows, which like I would love a Oscar and a Golden Globe and an Emmy. And I would never say I don't want one, because I know what they do. It doesn't, but I also know that they don't say that they don't let you know that your work is good. It's how hard you campaign, depending on the award, of course. But it's like how hard you campaign. Whether I know a lot of people who are on these committees for several of these awards, and they're like, I didn't watch that movie. I just seen who was campaigning hardest and put a vote in. And it's like, oh, okay, this is what happens. So it's like. But and so it's it's from both sides.
Right.
But I mean, I think you should just go for whatever award you want. But none of them matter when it comes to like how great and how dope your work is. But if you want that money, if you want that boost in pay, then you need to go after the Grammy and that Oscar and that Emmy. But it's funny because even with Tanja, she also wrote we were going to Big Bear like last year sometime, or maybe 2018, and we were talking about the EGOT because I think John Legend
got all of them.
Yeah, John Legend got his. Whoopi's one. There's several. There's
Can you tell them what it is for those that may not know?
Oh yeah, so the EGOT is for those who got the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. And so that's what television, music, film, and theater.
Yep.
And there are a couple people who have 2. But we were talking about it, and I was like, maybe we should create a Black one, and let's call it the BIST. And she was like, the what? I was like, yeah, that's the BET Awards, the Image Award, and the Soul Train Award. And so if you get the BIST, that you were in there. And so,
Yes, I'm for it.
yeah,
I'm here
I'm
for
telling
it.
you. And so we were all laughing about it, talking about it over the weekend. You know, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, and we went back. You know, she finally wrote it up like a couple of months ago, and wrote like the artists who have it. And you know, it's like maybe this might make a change, but it won't. You know, I hope it does, but people are just gonna look at it and be like, "Oh, okay, yeah. I still want this Oscar. I still want this Grammy."
Oh, I found the article. See, come on, Bist.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what? If Darnell's apartment is where these great ideas, like,
Come on now.
I'm telling you, you got to risk the COVID. You got to risk COVID.
I'm gonna take this time to find some connectedness and just like validate all that your apartment brings. Because if we are able to come up out of the Rona with the best, right? Like, I am down for it.
I
I
love
think
it.
that would be a great idea.
I love it. I love it.
Exactly.
I'd like it. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the show notes. The last topic before the last segment, I just wanted to at least bring up, and I don't know if you caught wind of Kenya addressing some of the criticism of the show, and he actually, I thought it was going to be painful to watch because it was on T.I.'s podcast. It was a little painful to hear. Not because of like Kenya. I actually just told myself, Georgia, just plug in because you just want to hear what Kenya has to say and just listen to what Kenya is saying as far as the questions and answers are concerned. There were spaces where I felt like T.I. could have delved a little bit deeper. I was like, you have Kenya right here on your laptop. Like, ask him anything. And that wasn't what I felt like I got. But he addressed the colorism comments. But the one thing that people that got called out, and wanted to get your thoughts about this, and then we'll wrap it up to the next segment. Every episode is titled something related to slavery, because of slavery. Oh, by the way, this is still because of slavery. And the one thing he said that I didn't even think about, I felt like he said it in the first half of the show, was, you know, we were enslaved for 400 years, almost 40 generations. This was in his interview with T.I. And he says that's about 2 to 3 generations. It took 2 to 3 generations for things to normalize. He said, and then all of a sudden, the next day, I'm supposed to kick it with these motherfuckers that just had me enslaved a day ago. And there was no blueprint for that. There was no, that they were still oppressing me. And then I'm now supposed to figure it out. And you know, but it was just, I thought that was a very interesting point that he made, because he said, you know, listen, we are still resilient but we're still dealing with these effects. Darnell, I'm gonna throw it to you. What are your thoughts about that and that comment, or that? Yeah,
absolutely. I think it'll be a while, like it'll be a long time before we aren't dealing with it. Like, you know, a lot of people, I'll always say that a lot of people say, you know, that's the past, and you know, this is the future. And I was like, no, but it's not really the past. Like, it's always been our present, right? And so it's like, and we can't just get over it. Like, I mean, it was like our grandmothers weren't allowed to drink in certain places or eat in certain places. Some of our mothers even. I have friends in Louisiana who live in cities that still have segregated proms today. And so it's like, you know, everything goes back to because of slavery. Because of slavery.
like, you know, it just makes sense. It just sums up everything.
Like, there's never been a time in the history, like in the history of Black folks in the U.S., there's never been a time where we've been just free to do whatever we wanted to do, and feel free and not have anxiety around it, or not look a certain way about it. Like, you know, even it was strange for me moving to South Africa, because I found, like, living in Johannesburg was kind of, it gave me a small glimpse of what it might have been like to live in the US right out of Jim Crow, like a few years after the civil rights movement ended, because I would see how, like, some of the Black folks would look at me as someone who had money in South Africa, at least, and would treat me, and it would be like we were different people, and they couldn't understand why I had money. Like, literally, I had a doorman who would never hold the door for me, but it would go out of his way and I would come with like bags in my hand, and he would sit there and watch me struggle and go out of his way to open the door for like the white folks who lived in my building. And so, you know, and so, yeah, so I come back to the US and I'm like, that's like those are our grandparents because South Africa is only like one generation out of apartheid. And so like our that's our parents. Like our parents were doing it. So like you expect us to just say, okay, yeah, all is forgiven. This is what I'm gonna do. And I think that also goes to why, like, you look at people who don't like black as fuck, and they're like, that ain't real. That's not black life. That's not this. Or even I remember when Will and Jada's kids, like all the stuff that they used to do, all the little antics and stuff, and people were like, I don't like them. I was like, is it hard for you to look at black people who are living a free and happy life, or what is that? Because they're doing nothing wrong. They're just out here being happy and black.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something in a lot of us that say, I don't like it. That ain't real. That's not real life. Like, why everybody ain't got to struggle now. We all don't have to struggle. We all don't have those stories, like, so it's a crazy thing. Like, even like I was talking to somebody about college essays, and I wanted to do a post to be like, what was the topic of your college, the essay you wrote to get into college?
That's from Little Fires Everywhere, where she stole the girl's essay.
Oh, is it a thing? I haven't seen it yet.
Yes. And you gotta watch it. It's a thing. Watch it.
And it's a
do your post after you watch it.
I'm gonna check it out. But like, it's for like years. It's always been a thing where every black person I know, my mama was on drugs. It's like the most depressing story.
Yep.
Because of slavery. And so Kenya Barris hit the nail on the head. He was like, listen, everything. He's like, it's that one episode where he tells his daughter, he's like, no matter what you ask me, the answer is always going to be because of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Say it again for the people in the back.
Okay. And we could trace it back there every single time. Like, why? And I think that's a lot of reasons why I don't get I'll get mad and then I'll calm down because I'm like, damn, because of slavery. Like, like when a couple months ago, when all the kids got out of school because of, COVID, and in Jacksonville, all the kids' computers ended up at the pawn shop because their parents were taking them down there and money and all this stuff. And people were like, I knew these crackhead parents. And I was like, yeah, but let's do some tracing back. And here it goes, right here, slavery. So yeah, I get it. I get it 100%.
Was anybody? I know this might. Even the show that felt like lighthearted, was anybody triggered at any point of anything that they saw on there?
So just to go back about the titles, right? Like him rooting every title into because of slavery. What I would hope he would do for season 2 is like talk more, because slavery is like this big broad umbrella. And so what I would want him to do is just like provide like a small detail or a small action, right? So that people will start to unpack like how slavery has impacted how we think and operate today. Slavery was traumatic, and trauma can literally reinform your DNA. Like it can literally change your biological makeup. It literally trauma harvests in the womb. So I see it manifest in children in all this list of disorders we have because people haven't taken the time out to heal their wounds from past trauma. And it's just passed down generation to generation. And that's just one of the many ways that it shows up. And I could go on for days having that conversation and tracing things back to because of slavery. And absolutely, that's why I don't believe in the institution of student loans is because of slavery, right? Like I'm not paying to go and learn the dominant narrative at these institutions. Somebody else gonna pay for it. And I'm getting ready to apply for my PhD, and I'm gonna make sure that the title is because of slavery. So
there you go.
When I think about how, it's a narrative out there that every Black person has this sob story. We do, and rightfully so, because of slavery. That story was created for us when we set foot on this here soil. So absolutely, because of slavery is going to be can be a headline when like people are applying for college because as a black person, like you suffer from oppression regardless of the places of where you show up in privilege. You as a black person in our US context, you are your race is an oppressed identity.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite, or I wouldn't say trigger, but I was most excited when they started talking about adultification and how young black girls are not giving the opportunity to just like be kids, right? Because my ancestors were blessed to be full figured women.
Yep.
When I pop lock and drop it, it looks a little different than when Becky does it, right? But does that get to take away from my experience as a child? Or how I've been viewed as a piece of property rather than a person since I got here, or the people who look like me got here. And so I was really excited that they talked about it and they showed both kids in the same frame. Because I think on social media we may see a child who is racialized as black doing the newest dance and it's, oh, she's grown. But if we see somebody that is white, it is like, oh, look at Becky mocking us, or oh, white people show don't have no rhythm, right? Like it's a different conversation. So I was very excited when they talked about adultification and how the older child had to stop the mom of just like pause. That starts in the household. When your mama tells you to put on a shirt because Uncle such and such is coming over here. No, how about you tell Uncle such and such to keep his ass over
Keep
there?
his ass at home, right?
Child, right? And this is a child, but you got to cover up. You got to do this, that, and the third because, like, yeah, you are a little black girl and you don't want to be seen grown and fast. But before the world tells us that, we learn those things in our house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what's up. All right, y'all. That was good. I liked it. I appreciate you all deliberating with me on Black as Fuck. There's more to come. I know I feel like there's a season 2 coming, but I would like to see the conversation elevated more. And something that you said earlier, Darnell, like where would it go next? Because we're so used to seeing everything happen in the household. And if
Yeah.
she gets into NYU, I mean, I love Grownish, but everyone was comparing it to a rated R version of Blackish. But I would love to see what happens between him and his quote unquote on screen wife and how he is working through the divorce and how he literally is going through the divorce right now. But you also see him in juxtaposition with him buying all these fucking houses in California at the same time. So there goes the black nuance of that. So going into all of the things, could be heavy, could be lighthearted. Something I saw trending, I think when Insecure dropped, I was telling TJ offline. I was confusing Summer Walker and Ari Lennox. I don't know why, but I don't know why either. I just knew these were two fresh black singers that were bubbling and popping up. But I knew what Ari Lennox looked like. I didn't know what Summer Walker looked like. So she was trending, and all of a sudden, like she's growing into this, I guess, a better version of herself, as you may call it, and or she may see it as, and they were just dragging her. They were calling her Autumn Falls, and saying all these things because they felt like the old look or the previous look that she was accustomed to, she doesn't look the same. What is she doing? And I know policing women's bodies are a thing, but I just wanted to kind of talk about the conversation around why do we go after women that want to increase or enhance their looks, right? Or they just their body just evolves in a way that they may or may not have control over. I think Little Kim might be the only exception, but she is in that conversation though, because anywho. Oh, well, I was she was so cute, y'all, when she was like, I mean, she was gorgeous to me before she started doing things, but I think someone...
Did you see that meme? Somebody on Twitter was like, it wasn't even a meme. It was someone on Twitter that asked the question, was like, I would love to meet the man who convinced Lil' Kim that who she wasn't beautiful. And then someone retweeted it and said, he did.
Oh, that's so...
And I was like, oh shit, they talk about Biggie.
I thought, I'm so funny. I'm so glad you said that because that was my next point. I was going to say there. I think someone had said, when we were talking about Little Kim, that she was convinced or had these insecurities that what she looked like was not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more than enough. But anywho, about the whole idea of, why we don't give women, like, even they were talking about Rihanna and how thick she got, but Rihanna was like she used to look like a stick in her varying phases of her career when her hair used to change, and people were talking about like she was looking sickly, and now that she's looking thick, all of a sudden she's big, and then Adele lost weight, and all of a sudden she's quote unquote more beautiful because she's skinnier. I don't know if you've all seen what Summer Walker looked like before and then, and then and now, but your thoughts, TJ, starting with you.
So I have a lot of feelings, but the first one I just want to put out there is why don't we give people grace to evolve, right? I think it's easier for us to see the physical side, but we don't see when people or we're not as quick to comment when we see people evolving spiritually, mentally, or emotionally. I do think that now in today's time with social media, everybody has an opinion and now everybody has a platform to voice those opinions. But I think I'm glad you said it, like policing women's bodies has been a thing, right? Forever, and will continue to be a thing forever. But if this young lady thought that she or wanted to go out and enhance her body, like, why is this even a discussion? If she wanted to do it, she went and did it. Why is this a discussion? I don't understand.
That's all. I mean, I have nothing to add, really. I mean, I know that I just say let people be happy.
Right.
I think that I do think that there are times when, like, I remember a couple of years ago, they let Janet Jackson be the spokeswoman of self-esteem for young girls and how you need to love yourself. And I was like, I don't know if this was a good idea. I do think we need to stop policing anyone's body. If you want to do it, be happy. I think a lot of people who are mad about it, you'll find that a lot of them have things that they want to change too. Some people just love to be mad. Some people just hate to see happy people. Some people hate to see happy Black people because it just doesn't make sense for them. And so if it's something that's going to make them happy, then why are you doing that? What are you doing? I just let her be happy. If that's what she wants, let her do it. I gave, Lil Kim, man, like I saw a photo of her today and I was just
I'm
like,
telling you,
old photo, like
oof.
the original Lil Kim. And I was like, man.
Stark difference. I mean, like complete 180. And I know that, I mean, again, I think it goes back to the same, but I don't necessarily, I think my thoughts only linger if, and it's still not it doesn't matter, but when it's rooted in self-esteem, that's when I start to question it versus certain things. And I felt like Little Kim is just the extreme example of all of that, where she didn't need to change anything. Okay, you want to get a boob job? Okay, I get it. Like my mom's side is endowed with big breasts. I couldn't help that if I wanted to, right? But from the eyes to the cheeks, like it end up like you don't even recognize who she is, and the fact that where you would hear stories where she needs photos approved. If you take pictures of her, you just can't randomly take pictures of her. She has to be angled a certain way. It has to be this, that, and the third. And it's like,
but here's my question to you.
Okay.
Even in that, right? Is like you said, so two comments you made. The first comment was she didn't need to change anything. Well, apparently she felt different because she changed it.
Right.
Secondly, you said it's barely hard to recognize who she is because she's not that anymore. Stop looking for who she was and who she is today. Like she changed or she became the woman she wanted to be and how she presents today. And I think that that's why it is a conversation, is because when people evolve, sometimes it is hard for those of us who have opinions to meet them where they are today because we're still holding on to who they were. And they have physically let go of who they were, and so now you got to do the work to understand that, like, that is who she was. This is Lil' Kim, who she is. And the great thing about Lil' Kim is like, if you still want to hold on to who she was, I'm sure that kind of poster is available. That one poster where she has on that fur and that bikini and the legs.
I know you see me on the video.
In a lot of people's rooms. And I'm like, your mama let you hold that up. But anyway, you can go and find that poster, right? And you can go and honor the woman who she is today, because like that's who she is now.
Right. And in all seriousness, TJ, I don't when I see a picture of her, I'm just like, damn. But then I keep it moving. And I don't harp on it, but to your point,
right, but no, like I get it. I get it.
But generally speaking, yes, I get it. No, you're absolutely right. Well, then on a lighter note, because we've talked about this, what our Rona bodies looking like? Like, I know I have been eating during the middle of the night. Darnell, you talking about the damn scale added 2 pounds because of the towel.
No.
I've reached my goal weight though. I'm good.
You're nice.
I've reached my goal, and I was trying to gain weight. So
were you?
No.
yeah, I'm good. I made it.
Okay. Well, why did you want to gain weight though?
I just had an ideal body in my mind, and I wanted to get there. And I mean, staying at home, I got my resistance bands. I have found some workouts, and so I'm getting where I want to be.
Yes. Okay. You know, I feel like you're soon people are gonna want to see you naked somewhere, Darnell.
Oh, it's on Instagram somewhere. I might have to start the OnlyFans like Beyonce.
OnlyFans.
I might have to.
Right. Does Beyonce have an OnlyFans?
No, she said she was.
Right, Demon Time. Right. She said she might start her OnlyFans. That's hilarious because that's been running a joke between TJ and I. She was just like, Georgette, because I'm doing Patreon for subscription-based content services. But she was like, but Georgette, if you went on OnlyFans, we would have had to have a conversation. I was laughing. I just had no interest in OnlyFans because I knew about Patreon eons ago. But I also felt like both platforms it's almost like it serves. It's just like a generational thing personally. Like I feel like people that are on OnlyFans, like it's a younger generation. Yeah. OnlyFans is newer. Patreon has been around for almost a decade.
I don't know nothing about it.
Yeah, same. TJ, what about your Rona body? I feel like you've been working out consistently.
I work out more for my mental and emotional well-being more than I do physically. I definitely have allowed the Rona to allowed me to eat anything that I want. I have started back eating carbs, and I should not be eating carbs. But I do have my midnight snacks. I mean, we are usually on the phone chomping together.
My gosh, yes.
On the FaceTime, eating all the snacks.
Everything. Popcorn. I mean, Darnell be whole ass meals 3-4 o'clock in the morning. But I'm also up working, and that's how I'll be catching your shit, like your hand games with the music. I'm like, Darnell is a mess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So okay. Well, I want to go bike riding, Darnell. Every time I see your pictures of bike riding, I was like, yeah, I got to do it. I really want to do it. I miss bike riding. It's actually really,
and it's
really
dope because the New York streets are empty, and so I did did about 25 miles a day.
Oh wow!
Like I'll start at home, go down. The first day I went down to Soho, down the west side, came back up the east, went through the park, and then the next day I went down to Brooklyn, rode through Williamsburg, went back through Queens, and then back into the city.
Wow, I get nervous riding bikes in New York because like the New York bike riders know how to like navigate with cars and shit, and I'm like,
there are no cars though. Like there are no cars on the street.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm not mad at that. Okay, so how can we find all of you on social media? TJ, I feel like you're not even going to give up your information. So
I mean, I don't have any information to give up, but with support, I'm going to eventually have LinkedIn. So maybe when we come back for season 2, I'll have LinkedIn and people can find me there.
I mean, she has a Finsta. She's not going to tell you what that is. I'm not mad at it. A fake Instagram, like where she lurks, but
I do for hairstyles and motivational posts.
Well, then you got to follow Darnell. But Darnell, how can we find you? Your links, your documentaries. documentaries, all the things that you are doing, your books, fabulousness. Tell the world, Darnell.
Yeah, I'm just out here. I'm on Instagram at Clever Bastard, spelled just that way. Twitter, I'm at writer_heathen. I'm on LinkedIn, Darnell Lamont Walker. Facebook, same thing. Everywhere else, the same thing. Everything else is on Google, I think, and Linktree. Go to Linktree.
Yes, I like Linktree.
No, is that a new one?
So no, Linktree allows you to basically house multiple links in one place where you could just click off on different things. I have a Linktree as well.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So, okay. So your Linktree is what, on your Instagram? I could just put that in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
Perfection. Darnell, TJ, thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. And Darnell, when we back, man.
Absolutely. We're going to be in there.
Yes, y'all stay safe.
For sure.
All right. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you so much to my guests, Darnell Lamont Walker and TJ Smith, for joining me. You can find me on Twitter at Georgette, Georgette. You can find me on Instagram at Georgette Pierre. You can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at Black Nuance Pod. That's Black, NUANCED Pod. Find me on Apple Podcasts, my new home anchor, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and Spotify at Black and Nuanced Podcast. And you could also email me, blacknuancedpod@gmail.com, for your questions, comments, and feedback. I would love to hear your thoughts about Black as Fuck. If you liked it, did you try to watch it? If you agreed with some of the criticisms, if you loved it, if you know, whatever you were feeling about the show, hit me up. And if you didn't know, and if you haven't heard, I'm officially on Patreon under Georgette Pierre. So your support as a patron will contribute to my production company's goal to positively contribute to the Black experience. It's only $5 a month. That's it. With $5, you're getting early and exclusive access to various digital series and Black and Nuance podcast related content. Behind the scenes look at the creative process, some creative process input with patron-only polls, ad-free podcast episodes, monthly live Q&As, answering industry-related questions, patron shout-outs on this podcast. All of this for $5. And I want to thank you for your support as I transition into my next journey. And speaking of patron shout-outs, shout-out to Amanda and Aisha. They are my first two patrons, and so I'm so grateful for you all for jumping in. Until the next episode, peace.